Okay, let me tell you about my neighbor, Ray Sullivan. Ray's a retired veteran, late 60s, lived in the same house practically forever, his dad's place before him. Quiet suburban neighborhood, nice lawns, tight-knit community, you know the type. This house wasn't just a building to Ray. It was full of memories, family gatherings, quiet nights. After his wife passed a few years back, things got quieter, but the house was still his anchor. Then, tragedy struck. Ray's daughter, Linda, died in a car accident last year. Linda was a single mom, raising her son, Leo, all on her own. Leo, just 19, fresh out of high school, was completely devastated. Ray, knowing his grandson needed stability, insisted Leo move in with him. Leo didn't argue. He needed his grandpa's support. So they started rebuilding their lives together, found comfort in each other's company. Leo was a good kid, quiet, studious. Commuted to community college, spent evenings studying or helping Ray around the house. Having Leo there was a blessing for Ray, filled that empty space Linda left. They'd have coffee together, cook dinner, watch old movies. It was good. One crisp autumn morning, Ray steps out to grab the newspaper, enjoying the peaceful morning air. But taped to his front door? A folded piece of paper. Frowning, Ray grabs it, unfolds it. His stomach clenches. Notice of violation and eviction demand. It's from the HOA, signed by Karen Miller, the HOA president. Oh, everyone knew Karen. Middle-aged, perfectly styled hair, always carried a clipboard like a weapon. Had this unshakable sense of superiority, notorious for enforcing rules with an iron fist, basically creating chaos while claiming to maintain community standards. Ray reads the letter twice, blood boiling. It claims Leo living there violates some HOA bylaw against unregistered non-owner occupants. Says Leo has 14 days to vacate, or Ray faces fines, legal action, even foreclosure. The audacity. Ray slams the door, marches into the kitchen where Leo's getting cereal. "Leo," Ray says, voice tight, "take a look at this." Leo reads it, eyes widening. "They can't do this, can they?" "Of course they can't." Ray fumes. "This is my house. Owned outright. You're my grandson. This is absurd." Leo frowns. "Why would they care I'm living here? Not bothering anyone." Ray shakes his head, pacing. "Because Karen Miller's on a power trip. Always looking for ways to make life difficult. This isn't about you, Leo. It's about her needing to feel important." All day, Ray couldn't shake it. Why now? Leo had been living there nearly a year, no issues. What changed? Ray decided to call his neighbor, Ed, who'd lived down the street forever. Ed had clashed with Karen before over stupid stuff, trash cans out too long, wrong kind of flowers. If anyone understood, it was Ed. "Ray," Ed answered. "What's up? You sound upset." "Upset," Ray replied. "That tyrant Karen just slapped me with an eviction notice for Leo. Says he can't live here because of some ridiculous bylaw." Ed whistled. "That's bold, even for her. Didn't know the HOA could do that." "They can't," Ray insisted. "My property. Paid off years ago. Leo's family. He has every right." "Sounds like Karen's itching for a fight," Ed said. "Been getting worse lately. Heard what she did to the Wilsons? Fined him $500 cause their door was the wrong shade of brown." Ray groaned. "Don't have time for her nonsense. But I'm not letting this go, Ed. Going to that HOA meeting next week. Setting things straight." "Good," Ed said. "You're not the only one fed up. Need backup, let me know." Hanging up, Ray felt fired up. Wouldn't let Karen bully him or Leo. Spent the evening digging through the HOA bylaws. Found the non-owner occupant rule, vague, clearly didn't apply to immediate family. Karen was twisting it, overstepping. The angrier he got, the more determined he became. Sat down with Leo later. "Don't worry, kid," Ray said, putting a hand on his shoulder. "We're fighting this, and we're going to win." Leo nodded, looking grateful but still worried. "Thanks, Grandpa. You'll never have to find out what you do without me," Ray smiled. That night, though, lying in bed, Ray felt uneasy. Karen wasn't one to back down. This fight was just beginning. But for Leo, for principle, he was ready. Ray spent the days leading up to the HOA meeting like a general preparing for battle. He wasn't just angry, he was meticulous. Gathered his property deed, highlighted the relevant HOA bylaws, and the parts that didn't apply, jotted down arguments, anticipated Karen's tactics. He wasn't going down without a fight, especially not when it involved his grandson. Tuesday evening, Ray and Leo walked into the community center. The room was filling up, the usual mix of residents, agendas in hand. Karen Miller stood at the front table, flanked by other board members, clipboard clutched tight, that smug look firmly in place. Her eyes locked onto Ray and Leo as they sat down. She raised an eyebrow, a silent challenge. Ray met her gaze, kept his face neutral, though his anger simmered just below the surface. The meeting started with boring procedural stuff. Ray zoned out, focusing only on the upcoming fight. Finally, Karen cleared her throat. Now, Item 6, enforcement of regulations regarding non-owner occupants. Her voice was smooth, dripping with fake politeness. As you know, maintaining community integrity is paramount. Recently, it's come to our attention that a certain property, she looked directly at Ray, is in violation. Mr. Sullivan, I believe you're aware. Care to address the board? Ray stood up, notice in one hand, notes in the other. His voice was steady, firm. You bet I'd like to address the board. First off, I've lived here nearly 30 years. Paid every due, followed every reasonable rule. And now, his voice rose slightly. You're telling me my grandson, my own family, can't live in my own house? Karen's smile didn't waver. Mr. Sullivan, this isn't personal. It's about bylaws. Section 4.2 clearly states non-owner occupants must be registered and approved. Your grandson hasn't been. Ray held up his copy of the bylaws. I've read Section 4.2, Karen. It refers specifically to tenants, subletters, non-family occupants. It says nothing about immediate family needing approval. Lucas is my grandson. He lives with me because he's family, because he tragically lost his mother, my daughter, last year. A wave of murmurs went through the room. People exchanged uneasy glances. Karen's smile faltered. I understand that, Mr. Sullivan, she said, recovering quickly, voice still sickly sweet. But the board has determined his presence is disruptive. We've received complaints. Noise, other disturbances. This blindsided Ray. Complaints? What complaints? Lucas is the quietest, most respectful kid you could meet. He studies, helps me around the house. If there are complaints, I demand to hear them. Karen hesitated. Ray could see her calculating. We're not at liberty to disclose complainant identities, she said finally. But rest assured, the board takes these concerns seriously. This isn't personal, Mr. Sullivan. It's about quality of life for all residents. Ray felt his blood boil. Not personal. Karen, you've had it out for me since I opposed your ridiculous, no outdoor grilling proposal 2 years ago. Now you're using my grieving grandson as a pawn in your power trip. Well, I'm not standing for it. Karen's smile vanished completely. Mr. Sullivan, lower your voice. This is a formal meeting. I'll lower my voice when you act like a leader, not a petty tyrant. Ray shot back. Lucas is staying. Your bylaws don't give you the right to evict him. Karen turned red. Before she could retort, Frank, another board member, older guy, usually quiet, cleared his throat. Karen, if I may, he said tentatively. Ray has a point. The bylaws are vague on family members. Maybe we should review this before making decisions. Karen shot Frank a death glare, but he held his ground. Don't want legal trouble for the HOA, Karen, Frank added reasonably. Several other residents nodded. The mood in the room shifted. Hope surged in Ray. Karen, clearly furious, but seeing she was losing the room, gritted her teeth. Fine. The board will review the bylaws. Issue a formal decision next meeting. But until then, Mr. Sullivan, her voice was sharp again. I expect compliance with the notice. Failure will result in penalties. Ray crossed his arms. You do that, Karen. And while you're reviewing bylaws, maybe look up the legal definition of harassment. Because if you keep targeting my family, I won't hesitate to take this to court. He sat down, heart pounding. Leo gave his shoulder a reassuring pat. You did great, Grandpa. As the meeting dragged on, Ray noticed the shift. People whispering, casting disapproving looks at Karen. Her usual control was slipping. By the time the meeting ended, Ray felt determined. This wasn't over, but he'd drawn a line in the sand. He'd exposed the weakness in Karen's authority. Now, it was time to fight, not just for Leo, but for the principle of it all. He was ready. The HOA meeting felt like a small victory, but Ray knew Karen Miller wasn't one to back down just because she'd been challenged publicly. He needed to be proactive, build a solid defense, and maybe even go on the offensive. First call the next morning? Lisa Grant, a local attorney known for taking on tough HOA cases. Ray laid out the whole story. The bogus eviction notice, Karen's vendetta, The vague bylaw she was twisting, the support of neighbors. Lisa listened intently. "Ray," she said when he finished, "this sounds like a classic case of HOA abuse of power, likely fueled by a personal grudge." Karen's interpretation of that bylaw regarding non-owner occupants is almost certainly incorrect when applied to immediate family, and her claim of complaints without providing specifics? Highly suspicious. "We have a strong case." "That's what I thought," Ray replied, relieved. "I don't just want to stop her. I want accountability." "Good," Lisa smiled. "Let's start gathering evidence. Your deed, the bylaws, the notice, your notes from the meeting. And those neighbor statements? Crucial. Let's get formal affidavits." Ray felt a surge of confidence. Lisa's no-nonsense approach was exactly what he needed. Over the next few days, Ray and Lisa worked nonstop. Lisa drafted a powerful response letter to the HOA board, formally challenging the eviction notice's validity, citing the specific bylaw language, and warning of legal action if the harassment didn't cease immediately. She specifically called out the lack of evidence for the alleged complaints against Leo. Meanwhile, Ray hit the pavement, talking to more neighbors. The response was overwhelming. People who had been scared before were now willing to put their frustrations on record. Mary Jenkins provided a sworn affidavit about the flower fine. Ed gave a statement about Karen's history of selective enforcement. Several others shared stories of petty fines, ignored requests, and Karen's generally tyrannical behavior. It painted a clear picture of a leader ruling through intimidation. Then, Frank, the board member who'd spoken up at the meeting, contacted Ray secretly. "Ray," he whispered over the phone, "I need to tell you something. Karen did manipulate meeting minutes before. Made it look like votes were unanimous when they weren't. I have copies somewhere. And those complaints against Lucas?" I asked around. No one on the board actually received any formal complaints. "I think she made them up. This was dynamite. Forgery? Fabricated evidence?" Ray immediately relayed the info to Lisa. "This changes everything," Lisa said, her voice grim. "If we can prove she falsified records and fabricated complaints, this goes beyond an HOA dispute. This is potential fraud." Armed with Frank's potential testimony and the growing pile of neighbor affidavits, Lisa intensified the pressure on the HOA board. She sent a second letter demanding access to all board records, meeting minutes, and any documentation related to complaints against Ray or Lucas, citing Frank's allegations of potential fraud. The upcoming HOA meeting, where the board was supposed to issue their formal decision, was now shaping up to be a major showdown. Word spread through the neighborhood. People were buzzing. This wasn't just about Ray and Leo anymore. It was about the future of the HOA itself. The day of the meeting arrived. The community center was packed, standing room only. Ray sat in the front row, Lisa beside him, Frank a few seats down, looking nervous but resolute. Karen sat at the head of the table, trying to project calm, but the tension around her was palpable. The meeting started. When they got to the agenda item about Ray's violation, Karen tried to regain control, starting to read a prepared statement justifying the board's, or rather, her, initial action. Lisa stood up immediately. "Point of order, Madam President," she interrupted smoothly but firmly. "Before any decision is discussed, we have evidence suggesting potential fraud and procedural misconduct related to this entire matter, including the alleged complaints against Mr. Sullivan's grandson and potentially falsified meeting minutes. We request full transparency and access to records before this board takes any further action that could be legally compromised." The room went silent. All eyes were on Karen. Her face went from pale to furious red. "That's outrageous," she sputtered. "These are baseless accusations." "Are they?" Lisa countered calmly. "Then you should have no problem providing the records." Or perhaps she looked towards Frank. A current board member can shed some light on the board's actual discussions and voting records regarding this matter. Frank took a deep breath and stood up. "I can," he said, his voice shaking slightly but clear. Karen did pressure the board. The complaints she mentioned were never formally logged or discussed by the full board as required. "And I have concerns about the accuracy of past meeting minutes related to other controversial decisions." Chaos erupted. Residents started shouting questions, demanding answers. The other board members looked stunned, some angry, some scared. Karen tried to bang her gavel, tried to regain control, but it was useless. The carefully constructed facade of her authority had crumbled. The meeting dissolved into angry accusations and demands for Karen's resignation. Within minutes, a motion was made by another board member to immediately suspend Karen as president pending a full, independent investigation into the allegations of fraud and misconduct. The motion passed overwhelmingly, with only Karen voting against it. As the meeting adjourned chaotically, Ray felt a profound sense of vindication. He shook Frank's hand, thanking him for his courage. Neighbors swarmed around Ray and Leo, offering congratulations and support. Walking home with Leo that night, under the quiet neighborhood stars, Ray felt the heavy weight finally lift. The fight wasn't completely over. The investigation into Karen would take time. But the immediate threat was gone. Leo was safe. Their home was secure. And the community had found its voice, pushing back against the tyranny that had overshadowed it for too long. Justice, it seemed, was finally on its way. The fallout from that explosive HOA meeting was swift and decisive. Karen Miller, suspended as president and facing an independent investigation, became a pariah in the neighborhood she once ruled. The carefully crafted image of a dedicated community leader shattered, revealing the petty tyrant underneath. Ray, with Lisa Grant's expert guidance, cooperated fully with the investigation. He provided all the documentation, the neighbor affidavits, and Frank's crucial testimony about the manipulated minutes and fabricated complaints. The independent mediator hired by the now Karen-less HOA board conducted a thorough review. The final report, released about 3 weeks later, was damning. It confirmed everything Ray and Frank had alleged. Karen had falsified meeting minutes on multiple occasions, unilaterally enforced rules that weren't supported by the bylaws, misused HOA funds for questionable expenses, including, bizarrely, lavish lunches she claimed were board meetings, and deliberately targeted Ray Sullivan using fabricated complaints about his grandson, Leo. The report concluded her actions constituted gross misconduct, potential fraud, and a severe breach of fiduciary duty. The HOA board, eager to distance themselves from the scandal and rebuild trust, voted unanimously not just to permanently remove Karen from the board, but to ban her from holding any future position within the HOA and to explore legal options to recoup the misused funds. Karen didn't take it lying down, initially. She threatened lawsuits, claimed she was the victim of a conspiracy, but the evidence was overwhelming. Facing potential criminal charges for the forgery and fraud, and completely ostracized by the community, she finally realized she had no leverage left. Within a month of the report's release, a for sale sign appeared on her lawn. Seeing that sign felt like the final act of a long, draining play for Ray. He didn't feel triumphant, just relieved. Exhausted, but relieved. The constant stress, the feeling of being under attack in his own home, finally began to dissipate. With Karen gone, the neighborhood started to heal. The new HOA board, led by reasonable members including Frank, worked hard to undo the damage. They revised the vague bylaws, established clear procedures for complaints and enforcement, emphasizing communication and mediation over immediate fines, and made transparency a priority, posting all meeting minutes and financial reports online. Ray, though technically not an HOA member due to his property status, became a respected voice in the community. People sought his advice, valued his perspective. He even helped mediate a few minor neighbor disputes, using his own experience to encourage communication and understanding over conflict. He and Leo settled back into their quiet life. Leo thrived in college, the shadow of the eviction threat lifted. Ray found joy again in his gardening, in the simple rhythms of homeownership, in the quiet evenings spent with his grandson. The house, once a source of anxiety, felt like a sanctuary again, filled with the warmth of family and the peace he'd fought so hard to protect. One evening, sitting on the porch with Leo, watching the sunset paint the sky, Leo turned to him. "You know, Grandpa," he said thoughtfully, "when this all started, I was really scared. Thought we might actually have to leave." Ray smiled, putting an arm around his grandson's shoulders. "I was scared too, kiddo. But sometimes, you have to stand up for what's right, even when it's hard. Especially when it involves family. You taught me a lot through all this," Leo admitted quietly. "We taught each other," Ray replied. "We faced it together. That's what matters." They sat in comfortable silence, watching the stars emerge. The fight with Karen Miller was a chapter Ray would never forget, a stark reminder of how easily power can corrupt. But it also reminded him of the strength of community when people unite against injustice, the importance of fighting for your rights, and the enduring power of family. The nightmare was over. Peace had returned. And for Ray and Leo, that was the greatest victory of all.